Good morning, everybody. This is Prosperity Habit Interviews again. I'm Vincent Pryor with you once again. Today we have Tai Goodwin. Hello, Tai.
Hey, Vincent, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to just jump into it today. Uh,
Okay.
so, as I will with all interviews, I always pose that Mickey believes that prosperity and the generosity of spirit builds world peace. And I guess the beginning question is, do you believe that humanity can change and walk in peace?
I absolutely believe that humanity and change. If I didn't believe that, what would be the point of being here? And just in general, right? We got to have some hope for that.
Absolutely. I think hope is what carries many people through. Fantastic. That's very nice. All right. And so the first actual question I have for you is, what does prosperity mean to you personally?
Oh, um, personally, prosperity for me means being able to have more than just enough. I spent a lot of time growing up in that place where everything was survival mode and it was all scarcity based. And, how we talked about money in the home that I grew up in was we don't have enough. We can't afford it. Why would we ever spend that? It was all those kinds of conversations around money. And one of the things that I've learned, and I think I got this from Mickey, as a matter of fact, is that if you always are looking to just have enough, you never have anything to give anybody else. And so prosperity, means having more than enough to live a life of abundance and to be able to have the choices for the thing that you want to do.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I've kind of learned the same thing from Mickey because, Mickey is all about if your cup runneth over, fill another's kind of situation.
Yeah.
It's genuinely a little bit magical to watch her work all of
Hmm.
the time. Which is actually that's a perfect kind of segue into my next question because it's what are the key mindsets or habits that you've had to develop on your journey for all of that to kind of get into a new place?
Well, one of the things I share with my clients is that, money wants to be wanted, you know? And that's the energy, right? The energy of prosperity, like it wants to be wanted. And so for me, one of the habits that I had to work on was how I felt about wealth and money and prosperity, and how I talked about it, how I treated it, the attitude that I had about it, because it's just like a date, right? Like if you're dating somebody, they don't want to be ignored, they don't want to be treated bad, they don't want to be talked about,
Absolutely.
right? But when we do that with money, right? Oh, we hate people who, well, not hate, but we talk bad about people who have money. Oh, those rich people,
We
they
envy
always,
them.
you know well, it's envy is part of it, but it's also like I grew up in a house where people would say, who does she think she is, right?
Mm, yeah,
Or we look at people, rich people, they always do this, so those rich people. And what we're realizing is that we're criticizing those people. We don't ever want that criticism, so that means we
right.
don't want wealth because it's something to be criticized. And that was a really big shift. But that question of like, who do you think you are, is something that I had to really get over. um Understanding that um, money is not the source of anything,
Mm,
right? Like there's a source bigger than that, which flows through us and to us.
mm,
And so it's not always about money, even though that when you don't have any, you tend to think that it's all about money, money, money. But it really is about this, being connected to the source, and then, understanding that you have resources. So even if it's not money, it may be people, it may be time, it may be a skill, and you've got those resources. And as long as you're tapped into those and you are understanding that you're connected to a source
mm.
that is always going to deliver what's in your highest good, that was something that really changed the game for me in thinking about wealth and money and prosperity. Period.
That's a incredibly wonderful way to look at it. That's it's significantly different than I think most people's mindsets of how wealth and prosperity functions in general. I know it's something that I had to struggle with because when I met Mickey, I was not in a wonderfully financial place. So I remember having all of those same thoughts, about this wonderful, caring, generous woman of like, it's the same question because I grew up in the same household of who does she think she is? You know, like, why do you have all this money? Like, really? Like, what's going on here? Like, so I remember having to also move out of that mindset to be better.
Yeah.
Which is again another good question. Another good segue into our next question is where in your life do you still struggle with poverty mindset?
Well, that's such a good
If
question.
at all, actually, you know.
No, there's some struggle there. There's still some work to do around feeling worthy,
Hmm.
right? Again, growing up in a place where, if you're not given the things that you need, or
Right.
one of my most painful memories is about, asking for things like lunch money and being yelled at,
Hmm.
right? I'm not asking for a car, I'm
Right.
like 8 years old and I'm asking for lunch money, but I'm
Yeah,
being
I
yelled
need
at as if I'm asking.
$2.50, you know.
you know and so, yeah, so that sowed a lot of seeds of feeling unworthy, like, so I'm not worthy to have my basic needs cared for, or somebody's going to be mad at me if I ask for the basic things that I need. And
Right.
it made me feel really unworthy for, a while. And so that still comes up, all these years later, that feeling of worthiness, and do I deserve to have, and is it okay for me to have, and
Right.
can I really want that,
Mhm.
that's, one thing that comes up often for me. And another thing that comes up, is, just being able to ask for what I want.
Mhm.
When you come from a place of scarcity, sometimes we're taught that you just need to accept what anybody is willing to give you. And we have to learn to ask not just for what we quote unquote need, like, okay, I need lunch money, but, I don't just need lunch money. I want to eat lunch at this place.
Mhm.
And that, if you've got that little inner child that is still dealing with that sense of unworthiness, being able to say what you really want and just feel excited about wanting it without feeling shame about what you want,
Mhm.
that's something that I've had to grow into, and I'm still growing into that space.
Absolutely. I absolutely understand that point as well. Goodness, so many hard hitters today. That being said, what has been your hardest learned lesson through your prosperity journey?
Oh, goodness. My hardest learned lesson. That's a really good question, Vincent. Um,
Try.
Yeah, there's two or three things that are floating through my mind. I think the hardest learned lesson was that, um, everybody is not, well, let me, is that I don't have to solve this for everybody.
Mhm.
You know, I felt guilty for a long time because, I come from a family where everybody doesn't have a lot, or they don't have different aspirations or different goals or different things, or they just don't want certain things. And for a long time, I felt two things. I felt guilty over having opportunities or being exposed to certain things. But then I also felt like if I go after what I really want, I'm no longer going to fit in.
Right.
Right. And the hard lesson that I'm learning now, and it may not feel hard when I say this, but the emotion of it is hard, is that when I show up and go after all the desires and the things that I've been given and the things that I want,
Mhm.
that's in everybody's highest good.
Right.
Even if the people around me don't feel like it or think it, even if the people around me are still like, who do you think you are? Right. Or they just don't get me, or they just don't like, why do you always want X, Y, and Z? Why are you always doing this? That to me feels horrible because it feels like I'm not connecting and I don't fit in. And
Mhm.
I've really had to be okay with that, because when I go after the things, the vision, and all those things that are in my path,
Mhm.
it serves everybody's highest good,
Right.
even if we don't all realize it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You magnify yourself to magnify everyone else.
Absolutely.
Magical sentiment. My eyes. a phrase that I've lived by for many years now, because I too am a giver, is that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
it's just many ways of saying the same thing, but like
Hmm.
it's true because you can't really help anyone unless you help yourself along the way. And like your main
Yeah.
focus has to be you, otherwise it's kind of pointless.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I realized too, Vincent, is that, it's easy to look around and think about, well, this is going to impact the people that are close to me right now, right? So I don't
Mhm.
want to lose them. So I need to stay where I am so I don't put any distance between us. But here's one of the things that I've started to think about. It's not just for the people that I'm connected to now. The things that I'm doing, the work that I've done, the places that I'm going, it's for all the generations that come next. And so when I think about it that way, when I expanded my vision to think about, well, who is this really for? That helped me really grab hold of that, because then I started to understand that it's not just for me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of people are afraid in their prosperity journeys, is when they begin to understand that what they do is more than just themselves, and they get kind of washed away in, I guess, the grandeur of it all, because it really is something that touches everything that you do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think just some people are afraid by that, which is entirely fair because
Mhm.
for all transparency, the prosperity journey is kind of a terrifying one, especially when you're first beginning. It can be very scary. So,
Yeah, and I think that's like a lot. I think it's like that way for a lot of journeys. And so you have to really be willing to be brave,
mm,
right? To make those decisions, to make those choices, to not, be led around by your emotions. Because, if we live by our emotions, we'd be nowhere. You know
mm,
what I mean?
absolutely.
So yeah, it requires a lot of bravery.
Absolutely, it does. Speaking of bravery, can you share with us some of the inspirations of your journey?
Oh, some of the inspirations. My
Whether
daughter.
say,
She's been a huge, huge inspiration, even in how I, started my business, was because I really wanted to be home with her. Now, it didn't quite 100% work out that way. It took some years for that to happen, but she inspired me to become an entrepreneur, not only because of wanting to be home with her, but because I wanted her to see what was possible.
mm,
I grew up in a
absolutely,
place where, I didn't see a lot of other possibilities. Um, and I wanted her to see that she has options. I'm a big believer in practicing what I teach. And so I think it's horrible when parents tell kids that, oh, you can do anything and you can become this and you can do this, but then every single day we hate our job. And we're creating this whole environment that is based on, well, fear of not having enough money and I'm not ever going to be able to do this. But we're trying to instill hope in our children, and it's such a contradiction. So she's been one of my biggest inspirations. Um, Something else that inspires me is the clients that I work with. When I see them growing and blossoming, and just knowing that I am creating a ripple effect.
mm,
I'm helping someone today that's going to go on and help thousands of other people. And then the people that they help are going to help thousands of other people. I mean, that is a huge inspiration. And it kind of circles back to, it's not just about me, right? The work that we're called to do. And this is for anyone, whether it's, your prosperity habits, or whether it's, the vision that you have for your life, the things that we're doing now, it just transcends beyond who we are. And it just
right,
has the potential to reach so many people.
absolutely, I completely agree. That's wonderful. With that, what are some of your prosperity goals?
Oh, wow. Um, One of my prosperity goals is I want to have as much fun creating the life that I want to live. and I start there because for a long time, to me, prosperity was money, 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 money.
Mm.
But one of the things that as you start to do the work, you realize that, once you learn how to make money, that's not an issue. You can always learn how to make money, but
Money
it
is infinite.
becomes exactly right. The energy is there, the source is there. I was reading something the other day that talked about how, when trees are planted in soil, it doesn't deplete the soil,
Mm.
right? And so that's how kind of that's the energy of money.
Mhm.
There's always enough for everyone. So when I really started to take a look at prosperity beyond just money, it becomes, am I enjoying my life?
Right.
Am I sewing into the people and the projects that matter to me most? Am I creating what I want to see?
Right.
And those are the prosperity goals that I have now. Like how much am I living my values? How much am I enjoying this journey? And who am I sewing into?
Absolutely. And I appreciate that because sometimes you have to be incredibly strategic with who you sell into, you know,
Absolutely.
because sometimes when you magnify people that aren't necessarily ready to magnify, it's painful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
How do you keep your growth going?
I just keep making decisions. uh, I keep reading, I keep learning, I keep listening, and I keep taking action. This journey is so vast, and there's so much to learn, and there's so much to do. And you just keep trusting, you keep learning, you keep making a decision, and you keep taking actions, and that's how I keep going.
Absolutely. Each step, every step. As long as
Mhm.
you're moving forward, there will be growth. Absolutely.
Agreed.
So, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Oh, that's such a great question. um I wish I knew how freaking magical I was.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And if you've been around Mickey, right, that's something that she will say to you, and it will take a long time for it to click. And when it finally clicked, I wish I had known years ago, um, about our ability to manifest, our ability to just be
Mm,
and be magical instead of trying to fit myself into somebody's box or trying to manipulate things or manipulate situations. The power of just being magical and enjoying it, oh my gosh, it's the best feeling
yeah,
ever.
I completely agree. It took me a very long time. Fortunately, I discovered it before most people do because it can take people their entire lives to understand who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people, I think, very much underestimate the power of knowing themselves and
Hmm.
understanding that being themselves is okay. And then knowing
Yeah.
that just being yourself magnifies everything times 100.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Girlfriend, It's Your Time. And one of the things that I wrote, it's almost like, you get to prophesy over yourself with some of the things that you do, right? But, in the book, I talk about being brilliant and how we all start off being brilliant. And I go back to my daughter when she was young. I mean, she would scribble stuff on paper and she would show me, look, mom, look. And so it was the most amazing thing, right? And I would be, yeah, it's amazing, right? And what happens is over time, we get things that kind of block our brilliance. People leave us, we get bullied, we get hurt, we lose things, we make bad decisions, and it starts to block our brilliance. And so the work of the work of taking all those things off that block your brilliance is kind of how I see this whole prosperity journey. Right. We
It's a
get
good
to
way to
learn
look
how
at
to
it.
take, yeah, we get to take those things off because we all start off as brilliant,
Mm,
you know?
I love that. That's a fantastic way to look at it. With that being said, what has been your biggest achievement in prosperity to this point?
Wow, my biggest achievement. I would say Oh, you so many good questions, Vincent. My biggest achievement, um, the work that I've done in my business, and this ties into money, but I would not have been able to shift to where I am in my business had I not done the work around prosperity and how I got to see or think about the energy of money.
Right.
Um, but we were going into our fifth year now in our business. And I remember there had been months where I was like struggling to make $5,000 a month.
Mhm.
And then when I take a look at over this year, we've been able to have $25,000 months, $50,000 months, even $100,000 months in business. And that just didn't happen because I'm brilliant at marketing, right? That's a whole other conversation. But it was fostered by really understanding um, the world of prosperity, right? The world of, wealth, how energy and money work, and just being, right? And allowing
So,
that to just play itself out.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's wonderful. And then I suppose my last question, because I do want to get into how you know Mickey, is can you grant us some words of wisdom or advice for those just starting their journey?
Yeah, I say this all the time. There are people who can't step into their purpose until you step into yours. So if you have gotten a call to start this journey towards prosperity, know that it's not just for you. It's for all the other people who are going to be able to climb through that door and the windows that you open simply because you're taking those steps.
That's magical.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. I like that. It's very good. All right. So, as many people, you have known our guru, Mickey Mikeworth, for many years at this point. So I have, just some standard questions of like,
Okay.
do you have any awkward or hilarious moments with Mickey from over the years that are shareable?
Oh, you said that are shareable. So
Mhm.
um, an awkward one of my most favorite treasured moments is when I was dealing with the doubt of depression. And I get it bad. I talk about, being diagnosed with bipolar and what that's been like. And I was going through a really bad spell. And I hide when I get into that space, right? Like a lot of people do. And Mickey called me and made me take her to lunch. And it was at
Yeah.
this most beautiful, picturesque restaurant. And she said, "You're taking me to lunch." Like, okay. And she was like, "Are we allowed to use the F word on this?"
Yeah, I'm fine with it. We'll bleep it
Okay.
out later.
She said, "You don't get to fucking hide."
Yeah.
And it was one of those awkward moments because I'm like, I'm depressed. I don't, you know what I mean? She was like, "Oh no, you're taking me to lunch and you don't get to fucking hide."
Hmm.
Okay. What are you getting to eat? I mean, it was just, but
Yeah.
it was awkward because, but at the same time, it's one of my most treasured memories because only someone who loves you is going to call you on that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's meant everything to me. And one of my favorite Mickey memories, though, is somewhere around that same time, and I was working a day job before I left my last day job. She would take me on these like vacations. I
Hmm.
don't know if you've ever had like a mini vacation where
Absolutely.
she gets the convertible.
Mm.
And I was literally at work and I was hating my job. She said, "Come on over," got in the car, music, blasting top down, driving around for nowhere, 20 minutes. And it was like the best vacation,
Mhm.
right? That
Yeah,
you could
because she
have.
likes to drive fast. It's a tiny
Yes,
car. So she
yes,
just,
yes, without going anywhere. I never thought to do that, but we just singing. It was just the most fun, and it was about 20 minutes, but it was amazing. And so
yeah,
those kind of moments are things that stick with me.
yeah, it's a complete kind of emotional and mental and spiritual and physical reset in 20 minutes. Like it's better than meditation. at
It
any point in time.
is. It is. And when you have that, the energy of Mickey Mikeworth, it makes it even like 10 times better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What is your favorite Mickeyism?
You are freaking magical.
Yeah, that's a good one. Magical. I think one of my favorite things that Mickey does, and she's the only person that I know that's ever done it, is the way they collect everybody's quotes. It's
Hmm.
like you say something around them and they'll be like, oh, that's good. And then immediately their phone comes out and they're typing it down or dictating it to the phone. And like I remember just going through their phone one day and like just the list of thousands of quotes that she has. And there's got to be at least 300 in there from me. Like, because we've spent a copious amount of Saturdays together. So
Yeah.
like just the things that have been said and done are ridiculous. Just all these
Mhm.
quotes neatly tucked into a folder on her phone. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is your favorite Mickey moment?
Oh gosh. My favorite Mickey moment was a text message. I texted her, at one time I texted her, I said, Mickey, I wanna have $25,000 in my savings account and I want to have $50,000 in my business account. And she immediately texted me back and said, that's freaking amazing and it's totally doable. And I could not have, and the reason that was so special to me was because I wasn't in a place where I could have that conversation with anybody else.
Mm,
Like there was nobody in my family who I could text that to and say this without them looking at me like like I had two heads or like, what is wrong with you? And it was the total acceptance of it. It
mm,
was the total excitement of that. And it was also the total, oh, that's doable.
yeah.
Right. And even now, like I can feel my eyes tearing up because you don't get that from a lot of people,
Yeah. Mickey
and so
makes
that
you feel like
yeah.
everything is possible.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
everything. Like you could be like, hey, I want to just use telekinesis to pull the moon down from the sky. She'd be like, yeah, do it. Go ahead. Like I completely, it's doable. Let's go. Like I'm ready for it.
Exactly. Exactly. And then tell me when you do it so I can celebrate with you, right? Like that's the
Yeah, just like let's go party. I'll go get the prosecco. We'll just go have a party on the
exactly.
moon. Let's. I'm absolutely ready for it. It's
Exactly.
very nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, all right. So I have two questions from
Okay.
Mickey.
Hmm.
One really that's important. It says, do you have a prosperity goal you would have given to the world of humanity itself, basically? A
Mm.
prosperity goal for humans.
Uh, the I hope this qualifies as a prosperity goal for humans. Um, I would love for humans, all of us, to be able to tap into the knowledge that we are divine and divinely connected. I think I grew up in a church world that taught us differently, and
Mhm.
a lot of people have grown up in a church world that teaches us you're sinful, you were born sinful, and that is the opposite of prosperity. I think it's really hard to see yourself as worthy and loved when whatever you believe created you sees you as a sinner,
Mhm.
right? And so I really, really would love for humanity to grab hold of this, that we are divine and that we are divinely connected.
Absolutely. I understand. Perfect timing. We got our 10-minute window. Uh,
Yes.
wonderful. I think that was a pretty amazing interview, actually.
It was so
Um,
much fun, Vincent.
I appreciate you coming and I appreciate you sharing your story. And I had genuinely a lot of fun talking to you and getting to know you a little bit better. Uh,
Yeah.
thanks everybody who's watching and or listening right now. I appreciate you guys tuning in for our little soirees from time to time. And I think we're going to call it there. So, with that, everybody listening, I bid you adieu and go with prosperity.